This is the OBSBOT Tiny 2, and I have to tell you about this thing. It's another one of those gimbal cameras with the crazy tracking technology built in, but it's got a couple twists. So if you've been on the hunt to find something that'll give your content a little edge, a little flair, this might be what you're looking for. Hey, something I need to tell you before we start. There are a handful of videos on YouTube about this webcam, but most of them are sponsored, and for some reason the YouTubers aren't telling you they're sponsored unless you click the See More button in the description, so really not cool. YouTube sponsorships are awesome. The fact that creators are so valued in the space means that I can put food on my family's table by making these videos for you guys. And this video is sponsored by OBSBOT, and so I'm gonna tell you the advice that I tell you on every sponsored video, is even though I know I'm being completely objective and honest with my opinion, make sure you also go and watch a non-sponsored video on this before you make any purchase. I'm actually gonna link one down below. Nutty's is phenomenal. It was the best one I could find that was not sponsored. So I'll link that in the description. If you like the webcam, check out his video before you buy it, as you should do with any sponsored video. Okay, let's talk about the webcam. So the OBSBOT Tiny 2 is a webcam made more for the premium audience, which I think is pretty clear based on the premium price. Actually, let me see how much that is right now. OBSBOT Tiny 2. Yeah, $329, and it probably looks very similar to another one you're familiar with that we've talked about on this channel, the Insta360 Link, which is about the same price, maybe $30 cheaper. We're gonna put it in that group of webcams that are like $300+, like what the Elgato Facecam Pro and the Insta360 Link. Though, you probably notice this is a little bit closer to the Insta360 Link because it's got those crazy little gimbals and stuff in it, which we'll get into. But it does 1080 60 and 4K 30, including 4K 30 HDR, which is kind of bonkers. And it's got a pretty massive sensor built into it, which should make the image quality much better. So let's take a look at the image quality. I've said a lot of good things about the Insta360 Link, which is a great webcam. And so let's set the OBSBOT Tiny 2 next to it so we can see how they compare. Both of these cameras have a lot of image quality control built into their softwares, from things like saturation to contrast to exposure, white balance. And with tweaking both of them, I was able to get a pretty similar image. A handful of videos I watched on this talked about how they felt the Insta360 Link was a little bit sharper. But what I found in the settings was that the Insta360 Link's sharpness slider just kind of had a higher base level. Like if you could turn them both to 100, the Insta360 Link looks like it has a lot of digital sharpness on it. Whereas the OBSBOT sharpness felt like it had a little bit more of a natural range. I did turn the OBSBOT slider from 50 up to I think about 80%, and I kept the Insta360 Links where it was at, right in the middle. And honestly, both of these webcams look great. One of the first things I noticed was that the OBSBOT handles dynamic range much better. And by that I mean it's able to do a better job of keeping details in the bright spots and in the dark spots. You can really see it near the hot spot on my gigantic forehead, the part that's facing closest to the light where it gets the brightest. You really start to lose details in those areas, and then also on the shadow on the opposite side of my face. And one of the things that good dynamic range does for you is it makes the face look deeper, because the highlights and the shadows that create depth have detail still in them. So you'll notice it mostly as I start to back up and get further away from the light. The Insta360 Link starts to look a little bit mushy, like my face looks like it's been flattened onto a canvas, whereas it feels like the depth of my face on the OBSBOT is still there. That's one of those things about image quality that took me forever to understand. Like, why does my face look flat over here and why does it look detailed and deep on this image? And that's dynamic range. But while doing these tests, one of the things I noticed that the Insta360 was a little bit better at was autofocus. They both had decent autofocus. I just noticed that the Insta360's was faster, especially while moving backwards. I would say for webcams, these both have very good autofocus. Like, there was very little focus breathing, especially when I was at a normal distance away from it. All right, let's jump into movement and tracking with these things, because these are both those weird gimbal webcams that are super cool and have AI tracking. I don't know. Is it really AI? I don't know. Or is it just tracking? We've had tracking for years. Why is it AI now? We'll probably never know. OBSBOT, please don't hate me for making these jokes. Both of these webcams have a ton of tracking features, and OBSBOT's strategy is a little bit different here. It seems like they wanted to pack this thing with features. Some of them ended up being a little weird, like the feet tracking, which I'm not judging you for using, but I am a little bit. Some features of the camera seem to be targeted towards more of the Asian markets, like the beauty features that are super popular over there. And to us, are just kind of obscure, like these crazy facial mesh features and body morphing features. But this feature-heavy approach has added a couple cool, unique features that I would use. But let's start with general motion tracking on this thing. This is a huge, strong area for the OBSBOT where it really shines. It is way too easy to throw off the Insta360 Link with any medium to fast movement. And I could not throw off the OBSBOT Tiny 2 no matter how hard I tried. I mean, I'm spinning all over the place. But that really cool feature that I mentioned 2 minutes ago is that it has 2 different tracking speeds. Standard, which just kind of keeps you relatively centered while minimizing the movement as much as possible, so the footage is a little bit more comfortable to watch. And then you have motion setting, which locks you in the middle of this, and it is very good. I at no point could throw this tracking off. I would juke hard to where I would go out of the frame and it would still find me and go back to me. It's like one of those hunting dogs, like the pointers. It's just constantly just pointing right at you. A couple other features of note on this thing, just like the Insta360 Link, you can set preset angles that you can switch back and forth through, although it can only do 3 presets at the moment versus the 6 that the Insta360 Link can do. So if you absolutely need more than 3 presets, something good for you to know. You can also switch between those presets with voice commands though.
Position 3.
In fact, this thing has a lot of voice commands, and I thought that would be annoying at first, but it quickly became my favorite way to control this thing.
Track me.
I actually already had the hand gestures turned off on the Insta360 Link because I would sometimes accidentally trigger it just by moving my hand around. You've got some very easy commands, especially if this is like a room camera that tracks you around. Like, you got easy control of this thing. It's really cool. All right, one last feature that is a W for each of these webcams. For the Insta360 Link, you may have noticed that it has 1 extra motor than the OBSBOT. The Insta360 Link has 3, the OBSBOT has 2, and that allows for rotation. This means that the Insta360 Link is able to automatically switch to vertical if you ever need it to, which is really cool if you need it to do that, and the OBSBOT can't do that. And then the final feature for the OBSBOT is that it's able to shoot HDR not only in 1080-30, but also 4K-30. Whereas with the Insta360 Link, HDR is limited to only 1080-30. Overall, both of these great webcams. I really didn't want to take this video and make it this totally unnecessary dunk on the Insta360 Link, which is a great camera. But there are some areas that I found the OBSBOT to shine, and I wanted you to know that. So if you find it interesting, there is a link in the description down below. Also, again, a link to Nutty's video that is non-sponsored. Make sure you go check that out. And as always, happy streaming.